Explain what collective investment schemes are.
Okay.
You know, when we hear the word schemes, especially from the Kenyan context, people get a bit scared. But schemes is actually a good word. It's not a negative thing.
Yeah.
Explain what a CIS, a collective investment scheme is.
Okay. So in simple terms, it's where you pool money from different investors. Retailers, it could be institutional investors like pension funds, insurance companies, corporates, high net worth individuals. You pool money from different people and invest that money as a pool in different assets. So as a collective investment scheme can have different funds. Okay, so I can have an umbrella fund, for example, that has a money market fund, and that money market fund pools money. So it's a collective investment scheme. It pools money from different investors and invests that money like it's investing one account, right? In deposits with banks, in what we call commercial paper, or lending money to companies that are well run for short periods of time. So money market funds are short term in nature. I could have a fixed income fund where I pool money from different investors, but invest that money in fixed income securities like corporate bonds, treasury bonds from Kenya, from different countries, Euro bonds, but it's fixed income investments. And that's the asset class I have chosen. I will diversify within that asset class, but it's fixed income investments.
I get it.
I can pool others and invest in
Let me slow
equities.
you down a bit.
Sure.
Again, this may be very layman, but what is then a fund? Because we keep using the word fund.
Yeah.
Yes.
So a fund is just, it's like a chama.
Yes.
A chama is really a fund at the end of the day. It's you pulling money together and investing as one account. That's a fund. That's what you would call a fund. A fund can be a hedge fund or it's a fund where you put money from different people
together.
So it's like you fundraise to be able to invest in a certain opportunity.
Okay. So again, you are now talking about the collective investment funds.
Yes.
So it's different collections of, and what are the regulations around this then?
So the regulations are basically that in order for somebody to issue a collective investment scheme, you have to be licensed as a fund manager by the Capital Markets Authority. Not only that, but the fund that you want to offer the public has to be licensed and approved. Meaning that you have to have a strategy of exactly how you're making money. What are you going to invest in? What are you not going to invest in? What are the expected returns? In what ratios are you going to invest in? And there's certain guidelines. Now, the only one that's a lot more flexible is the special fund. So money market, there's very specific guidelines. If you're investing in fixed income fund, there's very specific guidelines. Equity fund, the same. Balanced fund. Now, special fund is for what do you want to do? But it has to be approved and it has to be within certain limits. But you define, I'm going to invest in these areas, it's global markets. However, I'm going to have X amount on these assets, I'm going to X amount on these assets, and so on. And so then you create your strategy, you present that to the Capital Markets Authority, and then they see whether this is something that makes sense. Yeah, and then they approve. But the Capital Markets is not the only one that has to approve. In order for you to issue a collective investment scheme, there are other parties involved. And that's why it's important for people to look for opportunities that are regulated. Okay? Because when they're regulated, there's other parties involved. It's not just the Capital Markets Authority. There's somebody called a custodian. And a custodian is an entity, usually banks, commercial banks, that hold the assets that you invest in. So if Faida in their fund puts money in a bank, invests in Forex, invests in precious metals, invests in equities from different markets, those equities, those precious metals, those opportunities are not held at Faida. They are held by a custodian. So if anything ever happened to Faida, it will not, but should anything ever happen to Faida, we don't hold those assets. So does that make sense? So your assets are safe. Not only that, we have a trustee. Now the trustee is the one who makes sure that we are operating within the law, that we are going to do what we told CMA we're going to do. So they have to check. You guys said you're going to invest no more than 20% in this area. I see you've gotten to 19.5. Please be careful. I can see you're getting to the limit. I mean, they keep checking to ensure that we are operating within our investment policy statement and within the capital market regulations. So there's checks and balances to ensure that this fund manager, who is licensed by CMA, does exactly what they're meant to do in the interests of its unit holders or fund holders. Yes.
Let's layman this even to another level.
Okay.
Rina, I have 5 million shillings.
Okay.
I am giving you for the investment in this special
Fund.
special fund. When we're going to get into that, what then happens?
Okay.
I send that 5 million shillings to?
Yes, of course, after some KYC
Yes.
paperwork has been done, we have to check what
Yes.
is the source of these 5 million. We don't want you to...
You're not just going to take it.
Right?
You're going to take my wash.
We don't want to wash.
Okay.
Because
That's
there's
very
actually
important.
regulation around that also.
Oh.
Yes. There's regulation around that. We have a serious financial markets in Kenya. By the way, we have a serious, and I really need international investors to recognize that we have a serious financial capital markets in Kenya. We have regulations around anti-money laundering. We have regulations around terrorist financing. You can't just bring money and we invest for you. There's regulations around that. But anyway, to answer your
That's
question.
powerful. There's regulations around you taking money.
Do you know, one day we get a letter from the National Financial Reporting, I forget the name, okay? So there's this body. I forget the name right now. And they wrote to us and said, you did this transaction. This was like 7 years prior. Client so-and-so bought these shares, sold them, and you paid them. They are being investigated for some wash thing. You are required to appear in court in this day. Do you know, Richie, if we did not have documentation, do you know, grace of God, we had actually reported a suspicious activity, because that's what you do. When somebody's bought, sold very quickly, and then they've exited, you know, whatever the behavior is, that particular account, we actually had reported it. And I thank God so much that we had, because then it would be that we are enabling
I get it.
and being used to wash money. But the point is that they check. And these bodies that are ensuring that we don't have...
I love it. I love that it's not just a desperation of receiving money. There's regulation the manner in which money is received.
Yes.
So I've come through.
Yeah.
It's been seen, I sold my piece of land.
But it's safe, yes?
Yes,
It's safe.
yes. So finally, here's my 5 million shillings sold from a piece of land.
Yeah.
What are you then trying to say is the process that happens? I want to demystify, the reason why I'm having this conversation from a layman perspective, I want to demystify then, what is a custodian actually doing in this case?
So the custodian receives your money, not Faida, number one. And then we give the custodian instructions on what to do with the money. And the custodian sends the money where we ask them to.
So would
to
I put
invest
this
it.
money into Faida's account?
So it's Faida's account, yes, but domiciled with our custodian.
Aha. So for example, the custodian being...
So currently our custodian is Kenya Commercial Bank, KCB.
So KCB in the time where we're shooting this video, would receive that money.
Correct.
On the understanding that it is your custodian.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So then we will give instructions to KCB and tell them, for now, we want to have a certain percentage of the money or in a call deposit, for example, with a bank, getting whichever bank. And by the way, we're not stuck with one bank. It's whichever bank will give us, because we also have to have money in cash and cash equivalents. And that means cash that you can withdraw. But it's not just sitting there, it's earning an interest,
Yes.
okay? So we'll instruct them, put this amount in cash and cash equivalents, put this amount in equities, whatever it is that we're investing in at that point in time that makes sense. Our dealers, who are constantly reviewing the market, advised also by our research analysts, will be able to make the right decisions for that money. And it's not just for that money, it's for the entire fund. Okay, so we take the money and then invest it, and then we give you statements so that you know this is how much your money has made this month, this is the return that has happened, and we give what we call fact sheets to tell you this is where we've invested our money, or rather your money. In
this case, what is the, and I really like what you're talking about. There's some buzzwords that you're throwing in. We're going to demystify.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, I love it. But the question now becomes, what then is the trustee doing in this time?
So the trustee now asks us for certain reports. Not just us, but also the custodian. They'll ask the custodian, send me this report, send me that report, because they want to check what are the balances in the different accounts. We said we invested in gold, or we invested in Tesla, or we invested in whatever Euro bond
Yes.
or this bond in Kenya. They want to see that the balances that are in those accounts actually reflect what we said we did.
And they have direct access to
to KCB, yes.
And they can do this without asking you, we're taking these guys?
Yes, I mean, they are our trustee, and they are responsible, they're acting on behalf of you, the investor. You understand?
That is good.
So they hold like responsibility to ensure that they inform unit holders anything that they need to know, but also make sure that we are abiding by the law.
I love it.
Yes.
This is such a powerful thing to understand, that the trustee has oversight into your transactions and into the movement of funds and how you're investing the investors' funds without your permission.
Yeah.
They can look and see, just to keep checks and balances on Faida.
They are required by law. It's not a can I please? No, they will send whatever request they need. Usually they typically will ask for reports quarterly.
Yes.
Yeah. So that then each quarter, because especially for special funds,
yes,
it's not like a day-to-day sort of an investment. I think, like money market funds, it might be a bit more often, but typically it's about every quarter that the trustee will kind of do that check.
So again, I'm thinking about this from an investor's perspective. When I'm going to invest with a company, it should be important for me to ask them, who is your custodian and who is your trustee?
Yes.
And then I can, this is a way to do due diligence. This is the conversation around safety. So from a safety perspective, who is your custodian? Who is your trustee?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're coming back to continue this conversation. I heard you mention an exciting thing called a call account. I want us to figure out what that is. Demystify the jargon. We'll be back in a sec.